important question you need to ask to evaluate generalizations is, are the specific cases representative enough to support the generalization? If we are to generalize confidently from a number of specific cases to a larger group, then we have to make sure the cases can represent the entire group in all relevant aspects. For example, if you're writing something about all women, would you use the case of transsexuals such as Miss Jinxing as a case? Well, you could, but you better also include many other women as examples. Or when we look at this character, we can find it's also a problem of lacking representativeness. I'll give you a minute to evaluate the penguin's argument in terms of the representativeness of the specific cases he uses to support his generalization. Have you found the problem with the argument? The penguin reaches its generalization that some penguins are old TV shows. This generalization is based on his particular observation that some old TV shows are black and white, and penguins are black and white. But the problem is, color is just one feature that characterizes penguins or old TV shows. And it is unfortunately not a critical one that can distinguish penguins or old TV shows from other things. Although the penguin has observed many other penguins and many old TV shows, he only sees a single feature of color, which is not representative enough to identify a species or any object. An old TV show is a man-made program. Penguins are living creatures. So to decide if a penguin is an old TV show, we need to at least first look at if a penguin is a living creature or a man-made program. The penguin's argument is a poor one because the specific case he uses, same color of penguins in old TV shows, does not represent all the features of them. In fact, writers often make this kind of poor arguments in writing. Consider this student's essay. How do you find the essay? This is a typical essay our Chinese students normally produce. It seems a good one because there is a clear thesis and there is relevant reasoning. But would you say this is a strong argument? Are you convinced by the writer that Mrs. J is an excellent teacher? I am not convinced anyway. What is the generalization the author reaches in this essay? Mrs. J is an excellent teacher. What are the three specific cases the author uses to support his generalization? Mrs. J has never been late for class for 20 years. She cares for all her students. And she always spends time after work to give students individual feedback. Closely examine these three supporting ideas, and you'll find they all talk about one aspect of Mrs. J's competence as a teacher. That is, her attitude towards her job and her students. But do we evaluate the performance of a teacher simply by her attitude? Of course not. To tell if a teacher is a good one, we need to at least consider her accomplishment in her subject field, her mastery of proper teaching skills, and her values of being a teacher. These are the critical dimensions that makes a good teacher. In this sense, merely talking about the teacher's attitude is not persuasive enough to show she's an excellent teacher. In other words, attitude is not an adequately representative case to support the generalization, though the author offers 3 cases of this kind. Now, challenge time. How can we improve this essay? Pause the video and think for a minute. To make the essay more convincing, we should provide the reader cases that cover at least the 3 different aspects we mentioned just now about the competence of a teacher, so that the specific cases are representative enough to help us reach a generalization. The essay could then be something like this. Mrs. Caroline J. is the best teacher I have ever seen. She has extensive expertise in the subject she teaches. Then we can provide some evidence to support this point. Mrs. J has been able to vary her teaching methods to facilitate our learning in different contexts. Then evidence for this. At the same time, Mrs. J shares the core values that famous educators have, and evidence. So we can reach the conclusion that Mrs. J is indeed an excellent teacher. And now the essay is more convincing. Let's quickly recall what we've talked about evaluating generalizations. Do you still remember the 3 questions we need to consider when evaluating generalizations? First, we should ensure the specific cases we base our generalization on are true. Then, these true cases should be able to represent all the critical aspects of the issue we talk about in our generalization. What's more, we need to provide sufficient number of cases to support the generalization. After all, our aim is not just to make an argument, but to make a strong argument.